Good evening and welcome to the June 5th meeting of the Tupelo Planning Committee. Please take a moment to silence your cell phones. At this time, please rise for the invocation given by Mark Williams and the Pledge of Allegiance led by Scott Davis.
Please join me in prayer. Bow your head. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this beautiful day you've given us. Thank you for allowing us to serve on the Planning Committee, and thanks for those that are in attendance tonight. Please give us your wisdom and patience as we move forward with the city, and our decisions are pleasing to your eye. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Attention, salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Tupelo Planning Committee is a volunteer group appointed by the mayor and approved by the city council. We receive no compensation for this as we do it as a community service. We spend a lot of time and our own funds studying and researching the applications and visiting the sites that are on our agenda each month. We ask that you remember that we do not take our positions on any applications lightly. Our decisions are based on facts as they are presented and with regard to the regulations set forth in the development code. At this time, I would ask the staff and committee members to introduce themselves, starting with the staff, and remember to speak into the microphone.
Jenny Safely, City Planner.
Mark Williams.
Bentley Nolan.
Lindsay Leak.
Pam Hadley. Leslie Mart. Patty Thompson.
Scott Davis.
Gus Hildenbrand.
Russ Wilson, Zoning Administrator.
As we move into our meeting, has everyone had a chance to review the minutes of the last meeting?
And I'll say there is an edit that Russ has made that is not in your copy here that acknowledges Leslie's reappointment for the Ward 2 representation on the committee.
Thank you.
So you would be approving with that amendment.
I move that we approve the
Second.
Motion by Scott and a second by Bentley. All in favor, please raise your right hand.
Aye.
Jenny, is there anything to report on the council actions?
The minutes from last month's meeting will be approved at the June 6th hearing of the City Council, and our text, that's all for City Council action. It's actually the new business of City Council. They will be reviewing the approved rezoning that you all did last month at tomorrow's City Council meeting.
That's the old business?
That's the old business,
yeah.
that's right.
And new business?
Oh, sorry, that's relatively new, but City Council action. The old business is that the text amendment 2202 is still in legal review, and that's relative to multifamily housing and billboards.
Moving into the new business, the first item on the agenda will be the Flex 2304 Verizon Belden Tower flexible use review for 170-foot telecommunications tower. Is there a staff analysis on this?
Sure, yes. This is for a parcel on the eastbound I-22 access road onto McCullough Boulevard. Verizon Telecommunications is requesting to put in a 170-foot telecommunications or cell tower that will serve that area. There are a lot of dropped calls in the zone that they're trying to mend. That's mixed-use employment, which is a use by right here. However, all telecommunications towers are over 75 feet are required approval by the planning committee. So they're by flexible use. So that's what we're here to look at today. They have met all the special requirements of that zone and of the special use, including their landscaping buffer. This is primarily a commercially developed area except for 9 residential properties that are uphill from that's just south of Belden Baptist Church. Directly across the road is Lee County District 3, a storage supply parcel. We don't anticipate any negative impact from this. I have, based on the committee's request, reviewed how many cell towers we have like this in the area, and we're going to do a deeper analysis in-house on that. I've provided you actually what the applicant has provided relative to surrounding towers that exist, but I have 11 that have been approved through the planning committee since 2003 that are, I am estimating, over 150 feet tall, but that is a small number compared to other cities our size. And again, we have flexible use review on all over 75 feet towers. So there's some control here. They have been approved by FAA, and I've included that in your packet, as well as the layout and visual of what the tower elevation would look like. They'll be keeping as much as is salvageable. You have photos in your packet of what the vegetation that exists on the site is like, and they'll be maintaining as much of that as possible to maintain the buffer, the site buffer.
Jenny, did you say 11 since when?
2003 from the records that I was able to find, but
Okay.
I'll say our records on this are a little sporadic, so we're going to clean up some of those records to report back to you guys.
Thank you. Would the applicant please come to the podium and state your name and address and present your case to the committee?
Good evening. My name is Patton Pond, 1901 6th Avenue North, Birmingham, Alabama. I'm with the law firm of Baker Donaldson. We represent Verizon. I don't really have much more to say other than what your planner said. She certainly succinctly summarized what our project is. And yeah, I mean, the main purpose of this goal, this project, is to improve coverage along I-22. But I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about it.
Are there any questions for the applicant from the committee?
My name's Leslie Mart. Would you please tell us how you intend to apply the landscaping to the site once you guys get your tower up?
You mean
What kind of landscaping are you guys planning on doing?
I think it's in the zoning drawings on tab
Yeah,
C3.
they have L1 in their packet as well as C2 for a larger aerial.
Yeah, C2 has an actual depiction of what the landscaping will look like. And also on C3, it's zoomed in.
Jenny, it's all, those files are also on the desktop there if you need any of those.
No, you're good. Okay,
I think it says zoning attachment probably.
okay.
You guys plan to leave the, I guess, the tree line that's still there, as much of that is intact as well?
Absolutely. There's already a kind of existing buffer, and we want to preserve as much of that as possible.
What kind of fencing? Is it just going to be chain link? I thought I caught myself looking and didn't see it.
I believe it's chain link with a slats around it.
And then the landscaping buffer covers the fence where you don't really see the fence.
They've got, Leslie listed here, magnolia trees, dwarf holly as the perimeter there. So these larger trees will be magnolias, and the shrubs here are holly bushes. But I do think it is chain link proposed. But they're not required an opaque buffer for this. Just a 20-foot landscaping buffer.
Patton, is the fence primarily to
Security,
security?
yeah, keep people out of the compound. And I think it's, I don't know if it's on the same page as yours, further to the right. It's actually C3, I think that's the fencing. Yeah, it's at the bottom right.
Oh, there you go. This says wood boards minimum 5 by 8 inches to go wood boards.
Okay, so it's a wood
I think it's
fence.
wood around the chain.
Oh, okay.
And what's the height of the
height,
fence?
yeah.
I wish I had a bigger. I would say that's 8.
You see that number there? It's 6 feet, but then there is, 6 feet.
But I think there's barbed wire on top.
Okay, no, that's right, there are 2 feet of barbed wire.
It's not a good night to leave your reading glasses.
Are there any other questions from the committee? Thank you very much. We will now open the public portion of the meeting. Is there anyone here to speak for or against this application? Please come to the podium. State your name and address and tell us your comments or concerns.
My name is Keith Kennedy. I reside at 3828 Belden Pike. We're the closest resident to this tower. And would y'all want a tower that close to y'all's house? I spend a lot of time in my backyard, in my garden. I love being outside, but I don't want to look at a cell phone tower. You know, I'm sorry there's not good service there. I have AT&T. I don't have good service at Guntown at my work. But I don't want somebody to have to live by a cell phone tower. My mother-in-law is 85 years old. She lives 3837, right across the road. She's 85. She doesn't want no cell phone tower. She's lived on that street for 45 years. And I promise you, if she was healthy enough to come up in this meeting, y'all would get earfuls, I'm telling you. You know how older people are when they sit in their ways. But we don't want it, don't want to look at it, and we already have an eyesore enough at the end of the street as it is. I know it's not nothing to do with the city, but it's an eyesore. If y'all go down our street, look around, please go to the end, and you'll see what I'm talking about. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Is there anyone else? You'd please state your name and address, please, sir.
My name is Sammy Green. I reside at 149 Patterson Circle, South Tupelo, Mississippi. I also own property at 3820 Belden Pike, which is next door to Pete and across from his mother-in-law. My father owned property at 3570 Belden Pike, which is where you turn on to Belden Pike Road at Enfield Road. I'm also a member of Belden Baptist Church and on the Property and Grounds Committee, which is also the backside of Belden Baptist Church goes to Belden Pike. I strongly oppose this cell tower for several facets. First facet is that the notice and concern that went out with regard to the proximity of the cell tower to residents was 500 feet. If you do your research with American Cancer Society, cell phone towers are considered dangerous and emit cancerous rays for up to a quarter of a mile. The majority of these residents fall within that quarter of a mile, including Belden Baptist Church. It also emits noises that come off that. There's been several ranges as it goes for noise levels that come off of cell phone towers. Then it depends on the strength of the tower itself. So we don't really know what strength that they're going to be putting out dB levels with regards to this tower here. That is well within 500 feet. No, my friend, Pete, thank you for coming today, Pete, by the way. The other issue is what is the degradation to the value of our property of a cell tower within 500 feet? These are things that we have to consider. These are properties that we made investments in here in the city of Tupelo. I greatly appreciate your time in looking into this. I greatly appreciate that you volunteering for the traffic committee. I know what it means to you and what it takes away from your everyday livelihood. So I really would strongly recommend that you ask Verizon to relocate this tower, as most other towers are located in excess of a quarter mile from a residential dwelling. That's the safe zone. That's the reason you see most of the cell towers as you're traveling throughout your daily endeavors out in fields, a great distance from people who have to carry on their daily livelihood, allowing children to run around, grandchildren to run around out on their property. I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Is there anyone else here to speak for or against this? Thank you. That now closes the public portion of this application. We're now open for committee discussion.
Lindsay, I'd like to hear the Baker Donaldson maybe respond to what we just heard.
I certainly respect Mr. Kennedy and Mr. Green's opinions. We build cell towers today closer and closer to people because that's who is using the signal. Been a massive expansion in wireless demand over the last 2 decades and exponentially over the last 5 years. And we have to build 6 towers to meet that demand. On the cancer issue, this facility will comply with all FCC requirements. The FCC sets those requirements for public health and safety. This facility will not emit any noise, and it won't degrade property values. We selected this site based on your ordinance, and we meet the terms of your ordinance. Happy to answer any questions.
Jenny, does our ordinance require 500 feet from the tower to the nearest residence?
The 500 feet he's talking about is how we send notifications for flexible use applications.
Right.
So we do not have a distance requirement to residential properties.
Do we know, is this any closer than some of the towers that's been approved? You went and talked about going back. I know that's come up before. This is not the first time we've had nearby residents complain about a possible tower going up.
Right.
But the proximity, do we know if this is unusually close to residences? Is this normal?
Yeah, this is a frequent conversation that we have. Cell towers are among us at a great density. They are in residential communities, and often some of the smaller towers are so easily disguised, you're not aware that they're there. And not to speak to the safety or the distance requirement that we have, but there is nothing unusual about
the
this
proximity.
particular
Yeah.
proximity. That's correct.
So, Jenny, you made a mention about other towers that are within residential communities. I have seen a lot of these black towers that are maybe 30 feet tall at that.
Yeah.
There's a big difference between 171 feet tall and 30 feet tall.
That's correct. And that's why the over 75 feet, so a 75-foot tower can be reviewed by compatibility, which does not require full planning committee review. But at this height, this is why we have a different level of review.
So a question to you is there an increased output of What is that? I mean.
Sure, so, yeah, I'll let you answer.
If you're specifically speaking about the height, how far the signal travels is partly a function of height, and that's why they're put at 170 feet. This one is at 170 feet. There are others you'll see probably around the county, in more rural areas, they're even taller than that. The 30-foot tower you're talking about, if we needed 170 feet here, and we instead built a 30-foot tower, you're then going to have to build more 30-foot towers also closer to people's homes in essence.
All right. My question was about the quantity.
Output.
Let me address the person that is here at the podium. So my question is about the frequency of the waves. You know, is it increased because it's a bigger tower and it's taller? So instead of it having an output of 10, I have no clue what your output is. And that's what my question is. A 30-foot tower has an output of how much frequency versus a 170-foot tower? What's the output of frequency on it?
The frequency is not a function of the height of the tower. The frequencies are what the FCC licenses Verizon to use. The tower, the frequency itself is certainly affected by lots and lots of factors. How tall it's broadcast, whether it's trees, whether you're in a lot of topography changes, things like that.
So my question was based on, we know radiation. A little bit of radiation isn't going to hurt a lot of people. But when you have more radiation, it then becomes it affects people. And that's why I was asking about the frequency level. I mean, is that a reasonable question to ask
I think so.
on what's being outputted? Because the gentleman that was just up here made mention of some studies, which we have not seen and they have not been presented, about the impact to people living in a close proximity.
Sure.
So I'd love to see that kind of report.
And that's why I mentioned that we will comply with all FCC guidelines, because the Federal Communications Commission establishes what is safe and what is not safe. Verizon has to, as a condition of their license, operate within those guidelines. And I don't really like to bring up the Telecommunications Act, but the Telecommunications Act says local governments don't decide siting applications based on radio frequency emissions.
But it seems to me as that you're going to get more effect by using the cell phone than what you're going to get by being at the radio tower, right?
I think your question is, will the cell phone in my pocket have more effect on me than the radio tower?
Yeah.
I believe cell phones are safe. I believe cell towers are safe.
Yeah.
Did this report, you know, we're only seeing one page of this report. Did it look at residential locations versus?
You're looking at the FAA report, and that's just relative to air travel and the safety of the height.
Okay, so it
Yeah,
has
so we don't
not.
have an FCC report. I
No.
don't believe, you didn't submit an FCC report with the application.
I don't believe we did.
Okay,
I don't believe it's.
I don't think so. No, it wasn't required.
I'd really like to see some information about recommendations from federal agencies in regard to location of people's homes. What do you guys think?
I have an E911 tower in my backyard, so it's been there for years.
How tall is it, Patty?
I'm gonna take a guess, probably 60, 70 foot tall.
And that's just for the emergency tower remitters.
Right, and then certain times I can hear what they're saying, so, yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Any other comments? Would, I mean, as far as this committee is concerned, are we ready to vote on this? Or are we going to be asking for more information?
So you can approve with contingencies, deny, or table.
Does anybody else have any concerns about that kind of stuff? Am I the only one?
I have concerns.
Okay.
Well, I think that's a fair, are we out of the, we're in our discussion, right?
Yes, we're in our committee.
Okay, I think that's a fair analogy, that we should just go ahead and perhaps table it until we can have some more information.
But it goes back to what I said before, how many of these are have already been approved through Tupelo this close to residences?
That's right, I don't have that data for you
Because I know it's
right
been
now.
brought up before about being seen, there was one on
And they're everywhere, yeah.
of a year ago or so. It's not, and that was in the backyard, was it not on Feaster?
Well, we did one on, behind Dossett Big Four in somebody's backyard.
Oh, yeah, off of Lee Acres.
Well,
somewhere
yeah,
back there,
mhm.
Lee
We
Acres.
also did one out in East Tupelo over there.
Oh, is this the Feaster Lake?
Yeah, in Finster Lake.
I mean, it's,
If all the requirements are met, I think they are, I don't have any trouble making a motion to approve.
I mean, this is something we've done numerous times. So, yeah, it's a bit with
I've never had the question come up before about the health concerns about,
it. I mean, people, most
Stuff.
times, they don't like the way it looks.
Yeah. And the health
I hate
concerns-
that, but
I mean, the health concerns aren't truly in our purview, though. I mean, none of us are health experts.
if our job is to approve or disapprove on its location,
I mean,
then
this
it is in
about
our
the
purview.
location, like he said, the FCC has approved its part.
It's height.
Oh, well, that's the FAA has approved the height. The
The
FCC has
FCC
approved the
approved the
frequencies.
distance.
That's right. They set the health and safety guidelines,
The
the
health
Federal
and-
Communications Commission.
Yeah, FCC on that, FAA is the height for airplanes.
For airplanes.
But all that federal stuff have been approved.
So they've met every
And
requirement.
if they've met their requirements, who are we to say, no, you're wrong, tell the FCC
Well,
they're wrong?
I can't,
But that's,
have we seen the FCC report?
That one was not submitted. Do you all have one that you're able to
Not
share?
required, I
I
don't
can
think.
provide it to you, but
Okay.
it wasn't required as part of your.
That's right.
It's not
there
required.
again, that's not a requirement from the city.
Yeah, it's not
So,
required.
you know,
And when you get that, if you request that, it'll be probably hundreds of pages of information that won't
Yeah.
make sense to anybody except the engineers.
Yeah, that's right.
And I say this from being in the radio business for 25 years before. It's something that's very common for people to not want a tower next to them. We built one at Blue Springs. And we had some people, it was a very sparsely located area, but the guy that sold the land to us lived within a mile of that. And it's generally, the FCC protects us from those things that we don't know about, and it would take a long time to do. So they go over it on the front end, and I don't really see any concern. The height of the tower is a combination of the attempted coverage area that you want. The higher it is, usually the further it goes. If you were just going to cover a downtown block or something, you could get by with a 30-foot tower. And that signal would be a lot more intense in a smaller area than it would be at a higher level.
I'll second Bentley's motion.
Yeah, I'll make it official then. I would move that we accept this application as presented.
Motion by Bentley, a second by Gus. All in favor, please raise your right hand. All opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Jenny, will you tell the applicant their next steps?
That's right. There's 3 days for anyone who is opposed to this decision to appeal to city council. Otherwise, this is the final step of your review, and you can process through construction application.
Appeal to which council?
City council, and you can submit an appeal to myself if you'd like, or to Russ.
Today?
You have 3 days.
Okay, thank
Yes, sir.
Doesn't have to be anything other than the fact that you appeal, the decision.
We just need it in writing.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the next item, Flex 2304, Pecan Row Duplex Addition, Flexible Use Review and Preliminary Major Site Plan, recommendation of addition of 9 duplexes to the Pecan Row Duplex Community. Is there a staff analysis?
Yes, so Pecan Row Duplex Development is at an interesting square. It takes up a large block at Green Street, Mitchell, and Lawndale. And there are currently 12 duplexes located there, and it is largely vacant in the center of the parcel. And the proposal is to develop 9 additional duplexes there for a total of 42 dwelling units on the 6-acre parcel. There's a flexible use review required here for the building of duplexes within medium density residential zoning. And also as a multi-family development, site plan review, major site plan approval is required by this committee and by city council. You have in front of you an updated site plan that has included a dumpster on site. That has not gone through plan review. There are a few items that still need to be reviewed by plan review relative to utilities and the requirements of safety and stormwater drainage. Some of these things this is a preliminary major site plan, so we anticipate that there will be minor amendments to this. But in general, what you have here at base is the site plan that's being proposed. Again, parking, landscaping, you have a list here of things that will be reviewed in further detail prior to it getting to city council and also as part of the construction application. But this is a lollipop loop in through the center with access off of South Green Street, just south of the intersection of Mitchell Road. And the intent is to maintain the open space of the backyards that face the backside of the duplexes that face one another. That'll be common use area. Yeah.
Okay, all right, very good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Would the applicant please come to the podium, state your name and address, and present your case to the committee?
Jeremy Butler. I live at 1225 County Road 2788 in Baldwin. And yeah, we would currently own, me and my brother currently own the other duplexes on the outside of the proposed inside development. And would like to just take and kind of build out the land that's vacant behind them in the same in use and design and everything of it. What the buildings will look like will be just like the ones outlined in the 3 streets or circles. So just add to what's there.
Jenny, can you pull up the site map that now shows the dumpster added to it?
Certainly. Oh, let's see if, you know what? Certainly. Just trying to make sure I give you that update.
It is in our package.
That's right, we can just zoom in on it a little bit better here.
Dumpster oil.
So while that's coming up, obviously sanitation would be coming off the South Green to get to the dumpster.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. How's that going?
Yeah, there's an access drive
Right there.
Yeah.
right there.
Here's the dumpster.
There's the dumpster and there's the drive.
And so I guess my underlying question is, to the existing duplexes are there, will there be any landscaping to block those added dumpsters?
It's really hard to
Or were those
see.
dumpsters there the whole time? Because our original site plan did not show any dumpsters.
Okay, so they haven't
Some
built it
some
yet.
come up probably since
Okay.
that review, and
Access
we
drive.
haven't went to waste management yet to see what would be the best use there. So we put the dumpsters as an option. We think that would be best, but it would really be contingent on what their recommendations were. It would be probably better for us to have the sidewalk cans more so, but I don't know how we would keep them organized in a place where they could come in there and get them. So we thought the dumpster may be the better option for that.
The issue on this, for y'all's knowledge, in order for waste management to use this as a roadway to pick up personalized cans, it would have to be built to city standard, which includes curb and gutter and drainage treatments. And relative to this, I'm not sure we're gonna have, Jeremy will work that through waste management, but I don't think it would be an issue for you all to require landscaping at the access and at the dumpster entrance
You
here.
have existing there, and then you've got that now off of South Green that you would want to make that neat.
That's right, and as long as these, just for access point, as long as these are 125 feet separated from one another, as far as the apron entering and off the street, there should not be an issue.
So this dumpster would only be used by the 9 internal duplexes, basically because the city actually picks up, or Waste Management picks up the other.
That's
They have
correct.
the green.
Yes, sir, that's
There,
correct.
I think.
There's no dumpster on site now.
Yeah.
And
It's all-
he has a proposed walkway there from the loop.
So,
So do we know, can the dump truck get around this? The garbage truck get around? That one curve seems pretty tight.
You mean on internal
The
to
one that's
this?
by duplex or unit 3?
the garbage truck won't go in there.
It'll access the dumpster from Green Street.
But it could.
Well, it's not,
That's not their
They
purpose.
would have to.
They'd have to curb
They'd
the
have-
gutter inside that, and they're not going to do that.
yeah,
That's
So
right.
that's why the dumpster was added.
yeah, they,
And it'll tear up the road internally there, so I think they'll have to reinforce that little short drive there off of Green Street.
yeah, and actually, dumpsters are dumpsters. And they are normally not very nice looking. And the stuff that's put in them, especially by rental people, they'll dump everything they can in there.
So a
And
dumpster
it'll be a mess.
enclosure would
The
be.
dumpster will be bad.
That's right.
To not have the individual
Yeah.
dumpsters.
It'd
and
be
have
better
one
to have a
large
street.
dumpster. It's actually gonna make it look better, in my opinion.
Instead of having individual residential style, so
On such close proximity, and then when you have, like I said, tearing the road up, that, if you don't have, dump trucks are what tears up the roads anyway. That's dump trucks going down them, so if you eliminate that, the garbage trucks.
Yeah.
I said dump trucks, I meant garbage trucks. I just think it would make it look neater.
So Scott, what you're saying, you like the dumpster being
Yeah, I think it's fine. I had an apartment at college. We had a central dumpster like this, and it was fine. I mean, you get used to it. It was kind of neat, so I think it's a good idea.
An enclosure would be required, and then there would be landscaping, minimal landscaping is usually required, but like Jenny said, if you want to require there to be more around that, we could take that direction, reviewing the plan.
There's going to be a lot of garbage generated by 9 duplexes or 18 units. A lot.
It's gonna be a haul
Right.
for Unit 1 to get their garbage to the dumpster too.
I think, and that they're in process, so on the plan, it says necessary dimensions to be determined. So the size of, there are different sizes of dumpsters that you can get, and I think they're gonna make a determination about what can be needed.
Yeah, and waste management could help us with that
That's right.
recommendation.
Yeah. And I think Waste Management probably has a requirement for X number of trash-producing units.
And Jenny, in the proposed, I know that you said this is preliminary, but all the spacing between units is acceptable to our standards?
Yeah, that's right. So how the surveyor has done this is kind of blocked this off to indicate the distance, and all of them are greater than 10 feet across in separation,
Okay.
which is our requirement for safety access.
This dumpster just makes a policing problem for you, though, because I can tell you for a fact that when somebody moves out, they're going to dump their mattresses and everything else in it.
Well, they do that anyway.
Well,
Mitchell
but
Road.
if the dumpster isn't there, it wouldn't be.
Well,
No.
that's one of the benefits of the enclosure, because it has to cover it, it has to have a lockable gate
Yeah.
on it, which helps a
Yeah.
lot of that, helps reduce some of that.
With that type of enclosure, would like the people that live in the duplexes, they would have a key to access the,
Yeah, probably a combination code, or we can do a key to access it.
okay.
And Jenny, so you're saying that from the back of like Unit 1, from the back of that corner, the corner of Unit 1 to the corner of the existing duplex at 36 feet, that's okay?
That meets our code standards.
One of the things I really liked in looking at your existing units that are already facing green, those existing duplexes, is that they have a really nice residential feel. You know, there's a little bit of space between the units. It just had a really nice feel. And now most of these, you're just shoving them, as many as you can get in there, 10 foot apart.
So I will say, Leslie, I know some of these are difficult to see here. These two are 21 feet apart. This one's 11, 16.7, 17.5, 15.9. This one is the am I right?
Looks like
Yes, this is the closest at 10. This one is 12 and this is 21.
They also widen out, they're kind of in their cockeyed, so that's the nearest point, right?
That's right.
So it is wider.
And the darker gray area is not this, it kind of looks like the street, but, that's the parking area, so they're not just right on the street. There is some distance from the street, kind of like the existing ones are, from the curb to the front door, so there is, a little space there.
Is it your intent to make that continuous parking spots like
Maybe
that?
more like
Or
these
just like, right, the ones that,
These, we're open to whatever on that.
How many spaces does each unit have, parking spaces?
So the requirement, Russ, on individual dwellings is,
Well, it's based on the number of bedrooms.
Right.
One for one bedroom. It's generally one per bedroom, but for a 3-bedroom, it ends up being just 2.
so each of these pads holds 2 vehicles, correct, Jeremy?
Correct.
So
So
reasonably.
it would be less concrete or asphalt for us to do it this way, actually, but we wanted them more personalized just for each side of the duplex.
You'll end up with more parking spaces with this continuous than what you would have with the
Yeah.
individual.
Yeah, and that could be an issue where we get more people parking there than we need, so that may be a good amendment to change it as more individual.
And that would have been our recommendation in looking at landscaping, is to make this less concrete and to allow some sort of front yard
Sure.
in front of each if possible.
it doesn't, does our code, I guess the question there is for after the fact, after he leaves, sorry, my mouth and my brain are not working in sync this evening. I'll save my question until we start talking amongst ourselves.
Mr. Butler, tell us about the green space, if you have an idea what it's going to look like and how it'll be maintained.
Well, as far as maintaining it, we would just hire, we have people that mow properties that would come in and maintain and keep the flower beds up or whatever, but Rex Smith had done the design on this, and he put where we're able to keep some trees, and I think we'll have to possibly plant some trees, but just whatever you guys require on that, we're easy to work with on that. So,
Yeah,
I'd
and
like to see that.
our guidelines are, it'll be interesting on this, but generally we ask for 12% of the open space in some sort of planted area. But as residential, not commercial, without a parking lot, the requirements become primarily trees and 20% of the open space in a dedicated landscaping area.
And does this proposal meet the current traffic guidelines for building a driveway in like that, one way and things like that? Is that?
Yeah, we've had Public Works and Water and Light look at this, and Fire for Safety has looked at the width on this. And I believe, I'm trying to look at the radius on that, and I'm not seeing it, but that'll be part of the final review.
Cool, thank you.
But I think they feel certain that the capacity is there.
Any other questions from the committee?
Yeah, is there anything separating this from the houses? Like say unit 5 and 6, and then I see your line, the boundary. Will there be like a fence or something there to protect it from the other houses that are on South Green?
We're not proposing that in a moment, but the existing duplexes are just open as well behind them to the other neighbors and also other property owners nearby.
Well, but to the south there, are there not other residential units in there?
They're not, there's houses on South
That's
Green.
what I'm saying.
I'm not sure, like, directly right in here off the back of 4, 5, and 6. I would have to look on the satellite image.
And we've got that on tab 2.
Thank you, Russ. So there are single-family residential units here.
So that's what I was asking. Will you be able to walk from one right over into the complex?
Correct.
Or they're not going to put a fence?
It is the way it is now, and that's how we're proposing it, but that's, we haven't.
But there's all that green space right now. I mean, you have to go across.
Yeah, that's right. I was going to say, as part of the landscaping requirements, this would be considered commercial development as opposed to the residential, and so there's a buffer. There'd be a landscaping buffer in trees.
But just a landscaping buffer?
I believe there may be an opaque fence required on that. Don't quote me on that though, Patty. But there is a significant buffer requirement.
Okay. Because it just didn't look like much, like 30 feet, I think is what I saw here.
30 foot, 4 inches.
But this is covered in the code, present code anyway, Jenny, isn't it? So they'll have to meet that,
That's
whatever it
right.
is. Yeah.
Correct. And we'll get all those updates prior to this going to city council for review. But all that'll be included in the commercial construction.
Okay.
So this is considered commercial, not residential.
That's right, as multifamilies, it's processed as commercial.
So that's why the residential landscaping requirements do not apply here, and they're allowed to pave all that, right?
The commercial landscaping requirements will be what we apply. But are you meaning for the parking?
So residentially, you're not allowed to pave more than 25% of your front yard.
That's correct.
Where
yeah.
this, they're paving 95% of the front yard.
Well, and again, these aren't the final parking requirements. The parking area detail will be worked out in construction, but no, the 25% requirement is not the same. But we'll ask that it meet required off-street parking. And there is actually a variance for increased number of parking. So as presented now, this is, oh golly, more parking than is required. Guys, I don't know where it went, I'm sorry. Heavens, Betsy, will y'all just look at your thing with me so I don't have to lose my mind? So as it's presented here, that's more parking than actually is sort of required, and beyond required, there's a variance that would have to go through you guys, or depending on how much of a variance could be done in-house. But if he's willing to reduce that parking, I'm comfortable with that conversation during construction.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Butler.
Thank you.
We'll now open the public portion of the meeting. Is there anyone here to speak for or against this application? All right. We'll move into committee discussion.
So tonight, what we're voting on is just the first step to approve so that he can begin to talk to the planning department.
Yeah, the preliminary site plan just says generally, we accept the general layout, not the detail. That the detail will be worked out in review before council and as part of construction. And then your review and approval of the duplexes themselves in this zone is required.
Okay.
That's right.
So if we were to approve this, do we need to put verbiage in there about increased landscaping, less parking?
No, because all that is requirements as part of plan review to even get beyond the preliminary major site plan.
And the dumpster location,
That'll all be caught in that.
that's also part of that additional. This review, what we're doing is strictly about the major site plan
That's right.
and
the
allowing duplexes.
Correct.
Lindsay, I'll make a motion.
I second.
Motion by Mark, second by Pam. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Unanimous. Jenny, will you tell them what their next steps will be?
Absolutely, Jeremy. So from this point, we'll just finalize some of the rest of the site plan detail and set you up with a council review. That'll be your next step. Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next item is Flex 2306 Dynasty Event Center and Beer and Light Wine Variants. Flexible use review of Event Center in MUR. Variance review to remove distance requirements to protected places for consumption of beer and light wine on premises. Is there a staff analysis?
Yes, and Mr. Mayfield and Ms. Nanny Davis are here for this. Just want to acknowledge them. This has been a long time coming. Thank you guys for your diligence. So Mr. Mayfield has purchased the old Elks Lodge on Tolbert Street, and the event center use is required here as by flexibility. Because it is not part of a mixed-use development, I just want to read this because it's a very detailed code item. We're not part of a mixed-use development located on arterial or collector streets consisting of 30% or 5,000 square feet or less non-residential use. So outside of those arterial and collector streets, we have flexible use approval of event centers because they're not on main arterial or collector roads. However, Tolbert Street is part of the new Park Hill overlay, which has, as part of the neighborhood association, the community has agreed that they would like to see commercial development along Tolbert Street. And so this is sort of part of revitalizing that community and a little atypical from our standard code. So what we see here, you have the event center use that is required, and then a variance is required. So as an event center, consumption of beer and light wine will occur on premises if approved. Gumtree Park it shares a property line to the southeast of the Elks Lodge property, and as a public park is a protected place. We're looking at this as 100 feet is the protected place dimension or distance requirement. The city, and I have the draft of the waiver that the city is intending to sign here, but internally the city is in support of providing the beer permit and willing to provide a waiver for removing that distance requirement. I've included in your packet some further detail, just for your knowledge. The Elks Lodge was approved in 2018 for this same variance, but at that point, the 400-foot distance requirement was applied to look at who was protected. Residential uses are protected uses as far as beer and light wine consumption goes. So I've listed for you everything that's outside of that 100-foot, how we're thinking of that new commercial designation for the area, just so you're aware. And everything is, other than a residential use that's 154 feet from the property on Tolbert and is the single residential use on that street. Nothing else, everything else is 300 feet or farther. Spring Hill Missionary Baptist Church is more than 400 feet away from this on Green Street. So beyond that, at that 100 feet, the park really is your only protected place within the 100-foot commercial distance requirement. And so that you're looking at approving that variance and approving the flexible use of the event center on this.
Thank you. Would the applicant please come to the podium, state your name and address, and tell us about your project?
Thank you to the planning committee. I appreciate this opportunity. I've been here a few times before, but the first time in this capacity with the planning committee. It's a project on Tupelo Street that we've been working on now for a couple of years. It's actually two businesses. One is going to be the event center, which is going to be the main floor, the main level, which is on Tupelo Street. And it's also had a basement, as she indicated, it was the old Elks Lodge. And they have a lounge, a bar area down in the basement. And my intent is to put a pizza place down there. And we finished the outside, pretty much the outside of the building. The inside, we are probably now within 80%, maybe 85, 90% of finishing inside. They're painting, they're presently priming inside the building. So with the two businesses, my plan was to have the event center, have the pizza place where we would, and I have menus here also to kind of entice you for your taste. If I could get somebody, a wife maybe to pass these out. But we're going to call that particular business Park Hill Pizza, and that's the part that will overlook the park. We have a separate interest, and concrete parking is all on the back of that building now. And the entire back of the building has been renovated to give the appearance of the front. So our intent was to make it look more like a frontage as opposed to the rear of the building. We also put a pergola.
Thank you.
Pavilion. I see the wife grabbing all the attention now.
Well, she's got a menu.
Pictures of food. The samples would be nice.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
We better get somebody to cook better than I can. So the back of the building, as you can see from the park, it was designed so it does not look like the rear of the building, but more look like the frontage of the building. And so the intent was to put a nice little pizza restaurant there. It has a facility, a meeting room facility in the basement that will accommodate probably 75 to 100 individuals. And we have adequate bathroom. We were able to get the handicap bathroom on that floor as well. And so the latest thought that I had that I mentioned to Councilwoman Davis, that I said I think it'll be a facility that will be conducive to at least beer and light wine, particularly in this pizza place that I'm putting in. So it was actually in the month of May that I approached Councilwoman Davis about the idea that I thought it might be a good facility. I think it's in a great location. We have invested in that property now almost $1 million. We had to go in a full sprinkler system. And that was not an easy task because it being an existing building that was kind of chopped up, if you will. But we were able to bring the sprinkler system in through the front of the building and bore in up under the building. I think aesthetically it's going to be very pleasing on the inside. I want it to be a wedding venue as well as other events. So we are really trying to make it as nice a facility as we can so that individuals could be pleased to have a wedding event there. It has between the first and the second floor, the basement and all, approximately 10,000 square feet. We have on the second floor with a basement level, in addition to the Park Hill Pizza, there's going to be dressing rooms. And the dressing room will be for individuals who want to get married and have dressing room downstairs. And we're actually putting a walkway to get from downstairs to get to the first level. And it has two huge sections on the first level. The building itself, I understand, is about, some tell me about 100 years old now. I'm not that old, so I can't say, but it says about 100 years old. That was used for, I think, the Elks and the Masonic Lodge. Of course, when I moved to Tupelo in 1974, the Elks was the going nightclub at that time. My intent is not a nightclub. It's not a nightclub atmosphere, period. But more or less events that we're used to having within our community, where you have more or less semi-formal and formal events. And of course, it will be available for rent out for people who need to have it for parties. It may be team parties, this type of thing. We intend to operate it as a business is one that I'm proud of. What I've tried to do in the community is to improve and certainly not do anything that would bring down the community. I've talked to several individuals who are joining. I think they will join us. As a matter of fact, I just recently talked to Councilwoman Davis, the person who owns the little house across the street. I talked with him, and he says that he is agreeable to looking at putting a duplex there. And Jen and I had talked about if we could take that area across the street, have it commercial on the first level, and residence on the second level. And so I talked to him about that, and he's actually open to it. We talked at length about it. I said, well, he could maintain his own. I think he's interested in not going into a partnership, but having his own facility. And I said, we could come up with a design or plan where we could have a duplex that he likes on the second level, and his wife actually wants some type of museum on the first floor. So we had a great conversation just the other day. We were Tupelo Hardware together, and I stopped him and we talked for, I guess, 30 or 40 minutes. So I'm kind of excited about what we can do for that area. I appreciate the city for extending the overlay district up there, because I was concerned at one time that we might have just a lot of little single homes packed together up there in that community. And I thought it would just be just an ideal area for commercial type development that can appeal to the entire community, not just the black community, but the entire community. For that reason, I've also urged Janet and Councilwoman Davis to let's work towards extending the city limits to include the Tarver Street area. Pulling Park, the City Park and Recreation has worked with us and still working with us to really clean up that hill. And we got an event coming up soon, and I hope we can get it, they work mowing, and I've fenced in the entire area that divides the property, the Elks property, from the city property. And so we're keeping ours clean and mowed up to our fence line, our fence. And we, of course, calling up on the city to make sure they take them big mowers that they have and keep it mowed and looking nice all the way up to the fence. And I promise you I'll keep mine well kept going down to the fence. We've actually landscaped and put shrubbery along the entire property line of there. So I hope it's something that's going to be pleased to the city. So we're just here, I know we have to have this flexible use exception, and you know I'm a lawyer by profession, so I talk more than most lawyers. The other lawyer, he didn't talk as much as I did. But anyway, at this point, I'm going to turn it over for questions.
I do want to make just a point of information that we have not reviewed the facility as a mixed-use space to include a restaurant. So your approval here today is just for the event center and the consumption on premises. But let's sit down and review that.
Let me ask you, what are you planning on your hours being for your event center?
From what I've learned and researched, most people open up the event center like maybe from like 12 o'clock noon for people to come in for the planning, and they will end around, I guess around 12, 11 or 12 o'clock or so at night. But whatever that usual is what I'm planning on doing. I would say nothing beyond midnight in my opinion, like off the cuff thinking. But I'm not booked the first event now.
I noticed on the plans, the first 4 plans, there is stairs to the upstairs. Is there a second floor on that too, above?
There is a second floor, but that's not going to be occupied.
Okay.
It's actually a second floor off Tupelo Street.
Yeah.
It goes up, and there was an area up there, I guess it's about 1,800 or so square feet. But for better or worse, when we put the sprinkler system in, it usurped that space. They had to actually run all the sprinkler lines up on there, so it made it to where it's not practical for anything except storage.
Okay. So it's not going to be used for anything with the event center? Okay, thank you.
I have a question. So I see that you have a wonderful sidewalk in front of the facility, and you've got a black wrought iron fence, beautiful fence that you've put in. And so there's this grassy area between the edge of the fence and the curb of the street. Have you talked to the city, or is there any discussion about putting a sidewalk in there so that that sidewalk could potentially connect to the walking path at the park? Because if you got a pizza joint especially, it'd be nice just to be able to walk, have a continual path to get up there.
That's a great point that you raised. I spoke personally with the mayor about it, and the mayor did lend his support to a sidewalk that would actually connect Green Street all the way to Front Street. And he says that he felt like the city would be able to get some grants and things to make that happen. And the city, I might add, through the Tupelo Water and Light Department, has been very cooperative. They've got one new pole that you may have noticed that it sits over there on the property right across from us, and they are planning on putting another pole for good lighting. We installed lighting all the way from Tupelo Street completely around the back of the building just to keep it well lighted at all times. So I've really been pleased with the support that I've gotten from particularly the mayor. I think he's been up there 3 times since we've had this project underway.
Looks good.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Mayfield.
Thank you.
We'll now open the public portion of the meeting. Is there anyone here to speak for the application? We'll move into our committee discussion.
Jay, will this require 2 separate motions on these 2 separate things? Or
Yes, the variance for the beer and light wine, and then the event center flexible use approval. Correct.
So the application, though, for the beer and light wine would be for the event center, not for both of them, right?
It is for consumption on premises.
On premises, okay.
Yes.
Can I make the motion? I make the motion, first motion is to allow consumption on property, following the city's guidelines.
Second.
We have a motion by Leslie, a second by Mark. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Unanimous, motion carries.
And I will make a motion to approve use as an event center.
A second.
Motion by Bentley, a second by Pam. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries. Jeannie, would you tell them their next steps?
Yes, so your next step, well, let's sit down and talk about the restaurant. And at this point, your use has been approved and you've already gotten your commercial construction in, and that's being reviewed, if not having completed its reviews. We should check on the status of that. And after your construction is approved and permitted, then you'll get started and we'll just finish final inspections and you'll have your CO after final inspection.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Appreciate and have a great respect for the planning committee.
I didn't get a chance to make a statement too before.
Yes, of course.
I know all of you know me, I'm Lady Davis, Councilwoman of Ward 4. And I want you to know that this has been a long process. Like Mr. Mayfield said, we worked on it, I guess, over 2 years. The Elks is a historic place in our community, and it had really worried me for a long period of time. The Elks is sitting there not being utilized. I was so happy when I heard that Mr. Mayfield had taken on the task of developing the Elks property. And I have worked very closely with him to help him through this process. The community is very excited about it. The Parkwood Neighborhood Association have had meetings and given support to this. I think we came, as you indicated, came to a meeting when Mr. Sparkman originally had this property. He was thinking about the event center, and we strongly supported the event center back in our community. We later came back and voted for the overlay district to improve that particular area. At one point in time, in the area where the Elks and other areas that are sort of empty, have been sitting there empty for a while, was the old business district. And I developed this park there to kind of clean up that area. And after we voted for the overlay district, we feel that it's going to make the community more aesthetic and pleasing for the people in the community. So I'm just really excited, and all of the community is very excited about Mr. Mayfield taking on this task, because it's a very expensive task, which I felt like it took someone who was able to develop this. It took a lot of time and patience and money too. So we're just really proud that this is going to end up bringing this historic building back to the community, along with some other development we hopefully will develop in this area. So I just want to thank you for supporting what we're trying to do in our area, because we want all areas of Tupelo to be enhanced. We want it to be something that's going to make the quality of life better. And with the goals that I have had in the community, I'd like to thank Mr. Mayfield for coming and help developing this idea. So if you could please give us support on every step that we have worked toward developing this, and I think all of you in Tupelo will be very proud. Just drive by there and look at what he has done. He's done an excellent job. He and Ms. Mayfield, who's his main supporter, has been very supportive. So thank you so much for allowing me to come and make these statements.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Councilwoman Davis, thank you. City Council will review our decisions, and Jenny will report back their findings at our next meeting. Do we currently have any applications for the next meeting?
We do not at present, and we have a bit of a request on the schedule change. Russ and I will both be out of town on the day that the work session would typically be, and then the Monday, which would typically be our first Monday of the month, is July 3rd, which I anticipate to get very little out of you. So I'm suggesting that we move, and I apologize for how odd this is, the work session to July 5th at 5:15, that's a Wednesday, and then take the meeting to the second Monday of July 10th. But we do not currently have anything in-house, and June 19th is the deadline to submit, so y'all perhaps
So we may not,
day off.
we may not have any reason to use it
That's right.
anyway. So.
Maybe have the month off.
Well, do you need a motion?
Yes, I think to do that rescheduling, that would be great.
I'll make a motion,
just
we
for this-
reschedule it.
Thank you.
So we're go ahead.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your right hand.
Okay, thank you, guys.
You want to tell me the dates again? I didn't get all that.
It's right here,
It's on the bottom
Yeah.
there.
right here,
And July 10th, July 5th and July 10th.
and then that.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We'll say that's unanimous by decree.
Yeah.
I like it. Thank you, guys.